Sleeve up, Samurai. We've got a meta to burn.
What's up, Samurai? Welcome to Sleeve Up Samurai, a Cyberpunk TCG podcast. I'm Banana Crapshoot. We're here for the second episode. Thank you for everybody that's listened to the first one, and thanks for checking out the second one. So tonight, the main topic I want to get into eventually is we're going to look through the available how to play quick start rule set, we'll call it. And what we're really trying to do is find the cool mechanics that make Cyberpunk stand out and how some of the mechanics compare to other games currently on the market. We're going to start off with the uplink, a news segment / news roundup. And the biggest news in Cyberpunk TCG recently is that the late pledging period is over. So the pledge manager is live. The backer kit surveys have been going out. And just a heads up for people that picked the installment payment plan where you pay over like X amount of months, you will not get the email for your pledge manager backer kit survey until all 3 or 5, whatever it is, payments are completed. Just a heads up for those of you that are wondering, hey, why didn't I get my backer kit email? That could be a reason why. Another reason, if you use Kickstarter through your Apple ID, it gets wonky. Kickstarter doesn't play nice. So you may need to reach out to backer kit and they can find your pledge with some information. So it's a little news update for you there. The Ripper Doc segment would be next, and when we get it rolling into normal shows, which is where we look at a single card and just talk about it. So the one that I have picked to show, I will bring up now for the people watching. Reboot Optics. So Reboot Optics is a 2-cost program. It requires 2 yellow RAM, and a rules text reads: give a friendly unit +4 power this turn, then defeat it at the end of the turn. So this is a buff for you to play on one of your units when you're attacking. And where this can be good is, so every 10 attack power, you can steal an extra gig. So a normal attack on your opponent, you swing in, you steal a gig. If you have 10 power, you steal 2 gigs. If you have 20 power, you steal 3 gigs. So this +4 can take a 6 power unit and allow them to steal 2 gigs. So that's where I think this card can see value, is as either to spike a unit to defeat a problem unit on the other side, so you can use it as a pseudo removal spell. Or another way I think you can use this is to spike a big swing by being able to steal more gigs than your opponent's planning on you stealing, which could take you over the edge and be the difference between you winning that turn or losing, or, going into overtime or not. So this is a card you can find in the alpha kit, in the print and play decks, and it is also sellable because it is a program. So I think it is a card that will see play if you're playing yellow decks, because +4 power, even though you're defeating the unit, doesn't matter if you are stealing extra gigs to win the game. So that's that one. We will stop sharing that at the moment. And where did all right, so that was the Ripper Doc. Next thing we're going to move on to is the main topic. So the main topic, we're going to do a quick perusal of the how to play rules quick guide and talk about it and go through it, and then hopefully, be able to compare and contrast to some games you're already playing. So the official Cyberpunk trading card game, your goal is to have your crew amass 6 gig dice and secure them for a turn. So the win condition already is something that separates it from other games. Most games, your goal is to defeat your opponent by taking their life to 0 or destroying their base, like in Star Wars Unlimited. Dragon Ball, you're trying to, deal so much life damage. Final Fantasy TCG, you're trying to deal so much life damage. A lot of it is dealing damage. And this game is unique in that your win condition is not dealing. It isn't dealing damage to your opponent, but it's really about controlling the gigs dice and starting your turn with 6 gig dice. The closest comparison I can come up to for this is Keyforge because that game's win condition was forging 3 keys, and that check of when you forged keys happened at the beginning of your turn. If you had enough amber that you generated or whatever, you would forge a key at the beginning of your turn. So that's the closest comparison I can make to Cyberpunk, but nothing else that I've played or can think of that has a more similar win condition than Cyberpunk. So we already talked about the win condition. Control 6 gig dice. When you start your turn, you win. So after your D20 is your last dice you can roll in. And then after that period, once both players complete a turn, the game goes to overtime. So both players roll their D20. Then each player gets another turn. And then after that period, that goes to overtime. And then as soon as you hit overtime, when somebody hits 7 gigs, they win. And then you can deck out if you have 0 cards left in your deck. You just lose. We're not going to go over the play meta area. It doesn't matter as much. But you need to know that you start with a fixer area, which is where your dice start. That's the area where you keep your dice where they start. The gig area is where the dice you control will be. The field is where you play your units. The eddies is so the eddies. We can talk about the eddies, which is the resource system. So this mechanic of any you play cards from your deck down as resources has been done a long time. It's been done many times. But the closest one to this is Lorcana. Lorcana has the inkable cards that you can play into your inkwell if it has that certain like background on the card's cost. In Cyberpunk, only the gear upgrade attachments and the programs have the Eddy symbol on them, which will allow them to be sold to be placed in your Eddies area, which is your resource area, essentially. The other thing that is unique about the resources in Cyberpunk, which also ties into the legends, is that your legends are also resources. So the legends in Cyberpunk is what you build your deck around. There's a lot of mechanics with legends we'll get into during this discussion, I'm sure. But the one thing they do is, since you have 3 of them and they start the game in play and you can use them as resources, you start the game with 3 available resources before your turn even starts. If you go first, you have to exhaust 2 of them. And if you go second, you don't have to exhaust them. But then you're generally going to sell a card every turn if you can. So you're basically starting the game with 4 resources, which is way more than most games. Games like Magic, where you can play like 1 land a turn. And then you have games like Dragon Ball, where you can put 1 card as energy. Star Wars Unlimited, you start with 2 resources, but then you can resource 1 card a turn after that. Cyberpunk is even more of a ramp up because you potentially start with 4 resources in play. So it really gets you in the action fast. Being able to play a 4-cost unit on turn 1, it seems pretty crazy when most games are locked into playing a 1-cost card, or at most like a 2-cost card for most games. But yeah, your legends being available as resources is also unique to me. So like Star Wars, lots of games do the leader/champion. Flesh and Blood, Grand Archive, Dragon Ball, Cyberpunk, Star Wars Unlimited, they all do that champion leader, where that's kind of who you play as and what your deck builds around. But in none of those that I can think of are your leader champion things also available resources to you. So that is a cool thing about the game that makes it unique. So the legends, 3 cards, they provide unique effects. They have effects, some of them when you flip them, some of them have a passive effect, some of them you eventually completed the board as units. You can call 1 legend per turn on your turn, and also on the defense step on your opponent's turn. The trash is your discard pile. So card anatomy, cost is in the top left. If it has the Eddy symbol, which is the sell tag, that means the card can be sellable, and the leaders also have that on there because they can be used as resources. The tags are like what you would call traits in other games, and those could have triggers or kickers and be targets of effects. The card numbers in the bottom left, the rarity is in the center. The card's power, if it is a unit, is in the bottom right. That's how much attack it is we used for attack and defense. So in combat, if you're attacking another unit, the unit with the highest power wins, and the loser is defeated and goes to the trash. If there is a tie, both units are defeated. The RAM is something I talked about in the first episode, but that is something that is also kind of unique to Cyberpunk and has to deal with deck building and legends. So in most games, your legend / champion leader person that you're playing as will give you access to certain colors or provide benefits for playing that leader. So you have to play those. Some, like Flesh and Blood, for example, you play as that champion or character that you're playing as. And then the certain attacks have to tie into like the class. So you can only use the certain attacks and weapons with that class in that deck. In Star Wars Unlimited, you have a leader and a base that give you aspects. So Star Wars Unlimited, the aspects is what they name their color pie. And the leader gives you access to 2. Most of the time, there are some leaders that only give you 1. And then the base gives you access to another aspect. So generally, you are building with 3 aspects in Star Wars Unlimited in your decks most of the time. But in that game, you can play any card. But if you don't have those aspects on your leader or base, then you have to pay like a 2 resource tax for each aspect you don't have. But that's it for that game. In Cyberpunk, we have a RAM value. So legends give you RAM values, and that ties into your deck building where your legend gives you access to a color. And then the 2 RAM it gives you for that tells you how much RAM you can have for those cards in your deck. So I'm not explaining that very well. Let me try again. Your leader gives you access to the color, and then the leader has a RAM value. So 1 blue leader gives you currently 2 RAM. So if you only have like this V Corporate Exile leader in your deck that's blue and gives you 2 RAM, you cannot play a blue card that has a RAM requirement more than 2. So the cards will have a cost on them, and some of them will have a RAM requirement, and it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 RAM. We've seen different RAM value requirements. So that's another lever they can use in card balance and card design, where they can lock powerful effects like on Atom Smasher, who requires 5 RAM in yellow for a crazy powerful effect. But in the Cyberpunk TCG color pie, right, they give you the color and a certain amount of RAM. So if you see 2 blue legends in your deck and 1 yellow legend, as it stands, all the ones we've seen have given 2 RAM, you would have access to blue cards with a max value of 4 RAM and yellow cards in your deck with a max value of 2 RAM. So you're going to be splashing cheaper cards. If you're going super wide and doing 3 different colors with your legends, then none of them are going to be super powerful because you're going to be limited to 2 RAM required cards in your deck. It could be 6 resources and have good stats, but it's not going to probably have a super powerful effect because it only is requiring 2 RAM versus something like Atom Smasher, where currently you'd have to go 3 yellow legends and go mono to have access to his 5 RAM requirement. And that is something that is pretty unique to Cyberpunk. Other games do, like, if you're playing this character and this leader, this champion, you can only play the cards associated with either that color or that faction or job or class. And then in some games like Lorcana, you just have to pick 2 colors and that's what your deck is. And this game is way more flexible because you have access to 3 different cards that determine how you can build your deck. And that's both through color and RAM cost, which are two of the levers they can use for deck building and card balance. So I'm very interested in the RAM system. I think it's very unique, and I dig another way that they can turn a knob or pull a lever in a card balance and card design. So you can have super powerful effects, and they just don't have to increase the main cost of a card. You can do it through the RAM cost, which would limit the type of decks and leaders that you can have access to for those card effects. Currently, as the game stands, we have the legends, which are the leaders of your crew. It's who you're building your deck around, like we've been talking about. Units are the things you put in the field to attack. Programs are your instant effects, your one-time use spell effects, your upgrade cards. So the timing triggers, currently we have the play effect, play keyword that triggers as soon as you pay the effect. We have the attack trigger, which goes off when the unit attacks, and the effect triggers before damage is dealt or the fight resolves. If a unit has the attack trigger, you do that before you decide the combat. The flip keyword triggers as soon as you flip the card. And that would be on legends when you pay 2 resources to call a legend. Then you have the blocker keyword, which allows you to change the target of an attack. So currently, if I have a unit that is ready and I want to attack my opponent, I have a couple options. I can attack my rival or my opponent directly. I can attack any unit they have that is exhausted, or in this game is called spent. Any spent units I can attack. So if I decide I'm going to attack my rival directly, I want to go for the gig dice. If he has a unit in play with blocker that is ready and is not spent, they can exhaust that unit or spend that unit to make that unit now the target of the attack. And then go solo is like that V we looked at earlier. So after you pay 2 to flip it, you can pay whatever the cost on that legend is then to go solo with it and put it in play as a unit, which is another interesting mechanic. So like we talked about a little bit earlier with the legends being in play as resources, if you go solo with that legend, you are de-ramping because now it is a unit and is no longer a legend, or it's an eddy, so you can't exhaust it to pay the cost of things. And it's defeated, and when that legend is defeated, it goes to your discard pile, goes to your trash. So you lose it, but you're de-ramping to go solo. So it is an interesting trade-off and a nice tension point, I think, in the game design on when and how to go solo and get that extra unit on the field, because you're doing it at the cost of your own available resources. So how to play the game? You shuffle up your deck, you shuffle up your legends, randomize where they are, and then shuffle your cards. If you go first, then you exhaust 2 of your legends. So you have 1 available. You draw 6 cards. If you don't like it, you shuffle your hand back into your deck. You can draw another 6 one time. And then at the start of your turn, you draw a card. Then you gain a gig, and you do that by rolling 1 of the dice in your fixer area. The D20 has to be last. And then you ready all your stuff. And then you go to the play phase. The play phase, you can sell a card for eddies, one of the cards that has the sell tag under its cost. You can only do that once per turn. You can call legends, which is paying 2 resources to flip 1 over. And you can play other cards like programs. You can play units to the field. And then there is the attack phase. So the attack phase, once you enter the attack phase and you start attacking your opponent, you can attack as many times as you have units available to attack. But once you attack, you cannot sell cards to play as resources. You cannot play units to the field. You cannot play programs. You can't do anything except for attack. There's not like a second main phase. Some games allow you to attack, play cards, attack, play cards, and keep flipping and going back and forth between playing cards and trigger effects or attacking. In Cyberpunk, you have a main phase and you have an attack phase, and then it goes to your opponent. there's not a second main phase or another opportunity to play cards. So once you start declaring attackers, just know that's it. Then all you're doing is attacking the rest of your turn. And like I said, you can choose to attack spent units or your rival. And then when you declare your attack, you spend it. If it has an attack trigger, that would trigger. And then it goes to the defensive step. And on the defense step, your opponent has the opportunity to declare a blocker and spend a ready unit with the blocker keyword to become the new target of that attack. Or they can pay 2 resources if they have any available to call one of their legends. And that is also the same time that the quick hack card type, which is a program. It's like a one-time use effect that you play on the defensive step of combat. And then you actually go to the fighting step where you compare the power level. Like I said before, the higher power wins. If it's a tie, both units are defeated. And then if you're attacking the opponent, you choose one of their gig dice and you take it. Units can't attack the turn they're played if they have any card text on them that is relevant and alive while that unit is in play. But just know the turn you play a unit, they can't attack. Can still block because that'll be on your opponent's turn. So deck building, you use 3 legends. They have to be with unique names. It's a 40 card deck. 3 copies of a card in a deck can be a maximum of 50. It's 40 to 50 card deck. Sorry. No more than 3 copies of the same card, and the cards must stay within the RAM limit set by your legends. So this green 5 cost Goro Takamura is a green legend that gives you 2 green RAM. So if he was the only green legend in your deck, you can only have cards with a RAM requirement of 2 or less. Here's some more examples. We have the green Saburo Arasaka leader and the red Yorinobu Arasaka legend. I'm saying leader, too much Star Wars Unlimited. So these are the legends. So in the Arasaka print and play deck, you get these 3 cards. You get the Goro Takamura that can go solo with blocker. You get the Saburo Arasaka, and those are both green legends that give you 2 green RAM each. So this deck in the alpha kit has a 4 green RAM availability. So you can play stuff like the Sandevistan, which is a 4 cost, or it's a 3 cost gear upgrade, but has a 4 green RAM requirement. And then has their splash in the red Yorinobu Arasaka in here, which gives you access to the red color pie. But you can only play the cards with 2 RAM requirement or less. That's pretty much it for the what we have for the how to play quick start rules. One thing I didn't talk about is the street cred. So street cred is the value of the gig dice you roll in, whatever value they are showing for your friendly gigs, the gigs that you control, whatever their values are added up is your available street cred. And that has relevance because there are, like we just looked at, the Yorinobu Arasaka legend has an effect where when you attack with an Arasaka unit, you get to draw a card, and then you have to discard 1 from your hand. Unless you have 20 or more street cred, then you don't have to do the discard part of that effect. And there's other cards we have seen in the alpha kits that have kickers or trigger based off of your street cred. So that is a relevant mechanic added onto the dice win condition is the street cred available to you to trigger certain effects on your cards, which is variance in variance in variance, sort of. So niche of a niche of a niche, I'm down for it. So like we've talked about with the legends and the leader / champion, lots of games have done that. But where Cyberpunk separates itself is, first of all, having those cards be available to you as resources as the game starts. How you flip them sort of randomly is unique to Cyberpunk. How they start as resources, but some of them can be put into play. We've seen that with Star Wars Unlimited, where they start passively in the leader area, and then at a certain threshold, you can deploy that leader as a unit. And then when that leader is defeated in Star Wars Unlimited, it goes back to you flip it back over to its more passive side, its front first side, and it goes back to the leader area. Where in Cyberpunk, if you have that Go Solo legend that gets defeated, they now go to your discard pile. So having them affect your available resources is unique, I feel like, in Cyberpunk. And the RAM mechanic with using that as a card restriction thematically is very cool, and also makes it stand out to me as a mechanic in card games. Yeah, that was, I think, most of it. That's mainly what I want to get into today. And then the next part we'll go into would be street cred, which will be like questions from the audience. And I did have one. I'm trying to locate it at the moment. It's from Handlebar on Discord. It goes by Handlebar. Said, should I open my beta box or keep it sealed for collection purposes? I know I'm opening mine. What you do with your beta box is up to you, but I know I'm definitely opening mine because it comes with the card sleeves that I'm going to want to use. Because it comes with 2 100 count boxes of Dragon Shield Cyberpunk backed card sleeves. It comes with the Cyberpunk playmat with the zones. It's hit or miss with the zones. I really prefer playmats without zones, but having, an official one with the Cyberpunk TCG logo on it with, the available zones and everything, I'm cool with that. I'm down with that. And all of this stuff in the box is super cool. I'm going to want to use, man, I'm a cards as a game pieces guy. I am not huge on cards as a investment. Like when we're talking about a card game, it's a game you want to play with your cards. So the stuff in the beta box, I'm going to want to use and have sleeved up in my deck. For me, man, Handlebar, I am opening this stuff. But if you disagree, let me know why you disagree. So yeah, I think that's probably going to be it for this edition of Sleeve Up Samurai. I just wanted to roll through the available rule set as we have it and just talk about and highlight some of the things about the Cyberpunk TCG that make it unique and stand out to me. And part of it, why I'm excited about it. I like card games, like talking about card games. And this is one I'm very excited for. I just think about, like it's, I'm at home, I'm at work, I'm driving, I'm just thinking about Cyberpunk TCG. And I've been playing a couple nights a week with my kids. I have 3 kids, 2 of them are boys. My daughter's not really interested in TCGs at this point. She'll play board games, but TCGs not so much. But both my boys will play card games with me. And my 10-year-old is very competent with card games. He's gone to Star Wars Unlimited events with me and taught him Cyberpunk, and we've been playing a couple nights a week, swapping between the decks and just having fun with the Alpha Kit decks, and excited for more Cyberpunk. It's a great time to be alive, where we get, a sweet card game like Cyberpunk coming out. Really, we are in like I don't know, second golden age of TCGs where there's a lot of really good games. Star Wars Unlimited is an awesome game. You got stuff like Gundam and One Piece and Dragon Ball. You got stuff like Grand Archive and Cyberpunk coming. I mean, like, they're all like really good games. And man, what a time to be alive, where we have a plethora of options on really good card games to play. So there's something out there for everybody based off the IP or the aesthetic, the vibes. For me, I look at IP is hit or take for me. Like, does the game play well? Does it look well? Is it smooth? And then, like, what's the support for the game look like? So far, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Cyberpunk. And obviously, you guys are probably excited about it too, or you wouldn't be checking this out. So I'm going to wrap this up because at this point, I'm just rambling. So thanks again for stopping by and jacking in to the Cyberpunk world with me on Sleeve Up Samurai. We'll see you later, Chooms.